The fifth thing that reveals his glory is the truth of the Father. He was not only full of grace, but he was full of truth. Truth is always that which corresponds, number one, to reality, what we experience in our everyday lives. But truth, as far as its basic definition is concerned, is always that which is anchored in the very character and nature of God himself. In a class that I teach with my students here at Elam, I teach a class entitled Ethics. And in that class, I speak of the importance of this principle, just to illustrate it to you. For example, in the Old Testament, we go into the law of Moses in Exodus chapter 20, and we see the command, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." And so let's say that I'm working with a person who does not know the Lord, and they've watched me, and they've watched my life, and they've watched my marriage, and they say, "You know what? You are being faithful to your wife. How come you're faithful to your wife?" Well, one response to that is, I'm faithful to my wife because there is a word from God that I must obey. And that word says, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." And so the person says, "Oh, okay, I understand. So you're being faithful to your wife because of a command that you're asked to obey." And I say, well, that's part of it. But it goes deeper than that. Behind every command of God, there is a principle. And the principle behind the command is that God looks at marriage as sacred. And so God wants me to behave in a certain way because of the principle behind the command. The principle is the sacredness of marriage. And the person says, "Oh, okay, now I see it. You're obeying a command that's rooted in a principle." And I would say, yes, you see it still, but you don't see it completely yet, because the principle is always rooted in the very character and nature of God himself. You see, the reason why God asks for me to be faithful is that in his own character and in his own nature, he will never, ever be unfaithful to me. He will never, ever be unfaithful to you. And so because he moves in continual faithfulness, rooted in his character and his nature, he sets forth certain commands that are rooted in principles, but it all comes back to the kind of person that God is. That's really a good description of what truth is.